Hello, good afternoon and or good morning rather, and welcome to another edition of Dojo Live, sponsored by Encora. I am your co-host for the Wednesday morning segment. This is Ram Ganesan calling in from sunny, warm, and pleasant New Jersey, and I'm joined by my co-host from Southern California, Tulio Siragusa.
Good
And
morning. Good afternoon.
good morning. And we're joined by Parag Shah, VP at Wakefern Food Corporation, one of the top grocery retailers in New Jersey. And we're going to talk about how can grocery retailers evolve in a digitally enhanced landscape. Parag, welcome to Dojo Live.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you to Leo for having me. Looking forward for the session.
That's
Pleasure
great.
to have
Kick this off to kick this off, Parag. Why don't we start with a little bit about you? Let's let the audience get to know you a little better. Tell us all about Parag that you can.
Yeah, so thank you, Ram. I've been in the grocery supermarket retail industry for the past 20 plus years, and I have spent a lot of time in different functional areas from supply chain procurement, merchandising, marketing, and currently I head up the grocery and specialty division, where functionally I have full oversight over all the divisional function. And then I also support our strategic teams with digital commerce, own brands, format development, and other strategic pillars and priorities of the organization. So it's fascinating to be in this industry. It's a $1.4 trillion business, which was a very stable business, for the 2 decades I've been in, but the last 14, 15 months have been absolutely crazy, but also significant evolution that we saw happen. Wakefern is an $18 billion retail supermarket cooperative. It's the largest cooperative wholesaler in the country. We would be ranked in the top 15th if you compared us with Walmart's and Kroger's and Amazon's of the world. So dominant place in New York and Philadelphia market. We operate with multiple different banners. ShopRite is the primary banner. For those people who have lived in this part of the country, would be familiar with ShopRite. And then over the last 15 years, we have gotten into different formats with different brand names called Fresh Grocer, Price Right, and recently we have acquired Gourmet Garage and Fairway Markets in New York City, which is our first foray into Manhattan. And then we were early adopters of the online grocery business, and we used a branding called ShopRite from Home. And we started about 15 years ago. You can say we pioneered certain things. However, every day you wake up and you feel like you're behind on the digital curve, and especially with the growth rates that we have seen driven by pandemic, and some retailers have seen 300, 400, 500% growth. We have witnessed a monster size increase as well on our ShopRite from Home business, and we are on our way to getting to 10% of our overall business. So significant change with COVID.
Wow.
I mean, this is one business, essential as it was, clearly, that really reinvented itself over the last 15 months, right? And yes, you're right. Online grocery shopping has been around for 15 plus years, but we have all just really started using it in the last 12 to 14 months. And boy, has it been a lifesaver. All of these features that you just didn't even care. You just went to the local supermarket or to the big box retailer, etc., and just stocked up on groceries every week or 2 weeks. Now you have to plan, you have to schedule, and then being able to do this online and get even the food delivered or curbside pickup has been a godsend for many, many, many people.
Yes, I completely agree, Ram. And this year, with domination of pandemic, it was a difficult year for retail. Some retail sectors like apparel, fitness, restaurants, and others have been and continue to be impacted significantly due to the forced lockdowns and government changes and changes in consumer shopping habits. However, high-frequency retailers like food and supermarkets have experienced significant increase in sales as consumers have shifted restaurant and takeout spend to in-home penetration. Although we are experiencing this tailwind in sales and high frequency businesses, we have been challenged by supply chain and availability of goods, and we have needed to implement new in-store operational processes because of consumer safety as well, right? For the customer who still wants to have the in-store experience, we have to adapt to the new reality. So we had to do a lot of change and rapid change in a short period of time. So the rate of change that didn't happen on the digital front for 10 years happened in less than 2 months. But that is what everybody really talks about. But also the in-store has had to change because the customer expectations coming to the store have changed significantly.
So, Parag, can we just dig in a little bit more on that? So historically, I mean, if the retail industry has been very proud of EDI and just-in-time inventory, just-in-time supply. They've been on the forefront of that for many years. But a lot of that is dependent on point of sale data that happens with foot traffic. Now, all that has changed over the years. You guys have been pioneers in that space. But suddenly you get an influx of significant change where basically the foot traffic almost comes to a halt and everybody's ordering online. How did that challenge all these systems that have worked for decades, and what has had to change to support this?
I'll say that the biggest change you have had to do is focus on your priorities and create a growth mindset within the new reality. And every organization or every good organization has a 1, 3, 5 year plan that is laid out. So speaking for Wakefront, we did have that strategic plan laid out. What we had to do is accelerate the time window of that evolution of a strategic plan. We had to shorten the breadth. We had a lot of stores on ShopRite from Home, which is our digital brand. So the customers were allowed to order online and pick up in store, but there was a significant amount of stores that didn't even offer that service. So what we had to do overnight is create pop-up ShopRite from Home stores because we did not have the infrastructure available overnight to be able to do that. So what we did is, kind of created a pop-up technology. So we opened the store online and we worked with the retail operations team to be able to manage that. And that was such a big moment culturally for us, because an opening of a new ShopRite from Home took months and so much effort went into it, but now we were able to do it overnight.
That's amazing. An industry that you take for granted, fairly steady state, potentially borderline sleepy, just reinvented itself and just arrived in the digital world with a bang, right? And then more than anything else, right, Parag, for all your colleagues at Wakefront and everybody else in the grocery retail industry, a big thank you from me, because I know there was a lot of sacrifices that went into this, and you don't get as much recognition as maybe the frontline healthcare workers. But I know a lot of people in the grocery industry were affected directly by COVID, and they still kept working and kept the food supply chain going. And speaking of supply chain disruptions, who hasn't experienced a toilet paper run or a complete shortage of kitchen towels, right? For 6 months, you couldn't find them. They were a precious commodity. And I think this industry just showed the game that it was capable of playing and how it leveled up in a big way. And has it been a very pleasant surprise. The kind of innovation that I've seen at all of the groceries has been just phenomenal, from product availability to supply chain management to avoiding people hoarding stuff, right? Small things like that is what has made this difference for this whole industry to stabilize, right? Otherwise there would have been food riots. I think you guys have worked a lot to avoid that and take care of all of us and kept us well fed.
Yeah, Ram, thank you very much for that gratitude. And early on, when we started seeing signs of something was not normal, we started the concept of something called like a war room, where every morning we would gather people together and take stock of what had happened the previous day and previous night, and kind of recalibrate what needed to be done at that moment or for the next day. And that kind of really brought all the heads within our division together. And we were kind of, approaching this problem with one voice. And then when we evolved into a phase of work from home, like, it happened overnight. I still remember it was Sunday night, middle of March, at 9 p.m., we made the call that we are going to go work from home. And now in my team, I have over 100 people. So we had to get all the 100 people situated at home, and some of them who needed some office equipment to be able to function. And we did that overnight, and that war room really continued based on the technology, whether it was Zoom or WebEx. And that level of communication helped us really overcome the new challenges that were coming on a day in, day basis. But I know a lot of time is spent and talking about supply chain, but the retail front, I'm fortunate that I was able to work from home, but there are hundreds and hundreds of my peers who
Absolutely.
had no choice. They had to go to the store. They had to be front facing and be there for the customer. So they were on the front line, just like the police and fire people who never go home, right? Like when it gets crazy, they're there to protect us. The same thing happened with the grocery employees, and they started taking hits where they started falling sick, and sadly, the industry lost a lot of our fellow co-workers, which is very sad. However, we also had to take our off-store merchandising teams that were there to do and perform certain functions and tasks. Overnight they volunteered and they agreed to go into the roles so the store never stops functioning. So we saw some unbelievable productivity coming out of people, and the never say die attitude that people performed. And I know I speak for Wakefern when I say that, but the whole industry kind of reacted to it. So we saw so much passion and ingenuity come to life. So if anybody says what was the one single defining factor surviving pandemic, I would not say technology, I would not say digital, I would say it's the people. Because people made the difference that we were able to grow our technology, adopt a digital footprint, and be able to manage the challenges that were ahead. The same thing what happened on the retail front happened on the supply side, because that whole business, and Tulio referenced it earlier, it was just in time. You are very efficient. You manage your raw materials and your finished products literally to the hour, if not to the minute. And the state of the pandemic shock early on, the whole system and the supply chain was not able to absorb it. So companies had to slow down, recalibrate, and some CPG companies did it better than others. But the companies who did it the best were able to take a pause for a moment, evaluate the situation, use new methods that were not tried before, and go to market very differently. One of them was aggressive assortment rationalization. A lot of companies did that, but the companies who did it best were the ones who were able to get the most throughput out of their production capabilities. And that's how the industry started coming back to life sometime in late April, early May. And while this was all happening, our supply chain system was also facing disruption because people were getting affected. So I know there was a point of time where trucking was the biggest problem because there were not enough truck drivers available to haul freight across the country. So it was just a fascinating time. And we now looking back a year later, we call it the phases of what happened. Like, the initial stock was replaced by new plateau, And then, we saw some resurgence depending on the pockets you were in. And now we are in this post-stability period where there is growth, but it is a very different level of growth, which is driven by digital and government action. Unfortunately, there are a lot of Americans who are still unemployed are waiting for the government benefits to help them. And typically, whenever there is high level of government benefits, it influences the grocery trade significantly. So even though the demand may be slowing down, it's not to the level that our supply chain is still caught up to it.
Got it. Definitely a black swan event that will shape us for one, maybe two generations to come, right? A lot of things we learn, a lot of teachings, a lot of learnings, and a lot of sad stories too, with sacrifices. But Parag, growing from there, where do you think the evolution is looking like it's going, right? So it's definitely not just shopping online or working from home, right? I think it's more than that, right? There's other things that you would be closer to when you say that evolving in a digitally enhanced landscape. How does this affect other things on your day-to-day world, and what is the future looking like for grocery retailers? Is this about digital product assortments? This is about a better supply chain? Is it about? I think I should defer to you on all of that. So, just talk to us about what does this future entail?
Yeah, Ram, that's a great question. And if you look at the retail industry, majority of the technology work has been focused on in-store or warehouse activities. Head office functions such as assortment planning, promotions, forecasting, pricing, supply chain management are beginning to see and experience a rapid and substantial shift as well, mostly spurred on by the pandemic and the retailers' necessity to reduce the cost of running the business. Advancing the technology is making very much easier, and McKinsey is estimating that 30 to 40% of merchants' current head office activities are automizable, right? So that is a significant opportunity if you are a grocer or retailer, that how do you really find that efficiency so that you can go and invest behind the digital needs. So traditional category management processes and activities, which have been the same for the 50 years, are being significantly transformed, not only by the early adopters of the business, but also the growth that has been driven by the pandemic. So, as I look at the future, I call it the new reality. And I have 4 pillars when I look at it and I approach my business every morning. The first is digital, and digital means a lot to a lot of people. But for me, it's from a consumer lens. What does the customer want? They want convenience, they want it to be frictionless, and they want it to be seamless shopping experience. And not only online, but they want it across every platform, right? So I want to start my shopping experience online. I want to finish it up on my way to the store while I'm picking up on my mobile phone. But at the same time, I want to go in the store and pick up a couple of quick things as well, right? So customer is no longer, channel agnostic. It is, everything is merged together, and retailers need to focus on creating a platform across that is very seamless. The second is, how do you build loyalty? And from a retailer perspective, own brands really play a big role in it. And you may have read a lot of publications and a lot of news article like Target and Amazon, and they're launching more own brands than ever before. And we at Wakefront have done the same. We launched Bowl and Basket and Paperbird, which is our non-edible brand, about 16 months ago. And the growth that we have seen is just unbelievable. And by that, we are gaining loyalty of our customer. And they are using us, that we want to make a trip to ShopRite. We don't want to make a trip to the grocery store. So that mindset on loyalty is changing. And then, the shopping experience in store and the investments that you have to make. Fresh is huge. When you define fresh, I'm talking about produce, meat, seafood, in-store prepared foods, Appy Deli. And that business is about 28 to 30%, depending on the retailer, of your total cutout. And that's projected to grow 5 to 10% over the total growth rate, organic growth rate. So how do you make investments where the customer is not feeling that they are coming in to buy their apples and pears, but they're coming to experience and how you have merchandised their favorite apples and pears, right? So a big focus going into it, and the whole health and wellness halo effect across the store. How do you really branch that and help your brand identity come out to life? And the last pillar I really see, and I talk to my team every day about, is your CRM strategy. How are you talking to the customer? Customer is the first. What are the tools that you're using? Personalization is a word that's been around for a long time. New tools are being developed literally every day that helps you achieve the personalization with scale and give you better ROI. And then this is the whole new world of integrated digital marketing. How are you taking benefits of the sea of change of customer habits and are creating new marketing programs, whether it is search engine optimization or whether it is your on and off platforms marketing strategies, your display ad strategies. But how are you creating a cohesive flywheel that kind of helps your customer engage more with you?
That's amazing. Tulio,
Wow.
do you have a question?
I was curious, growing up in a small town in Europe, I remember that the grocer sometimes came to you, right? Came with a truck or a vehicle that carried grocery. And so, you didn't have online shopping, but you had them coming to you. And this concept of the drop shipment has evolved over the past few years. And I'm curious, you talked about evolving the online shopping experience. Is there thoughts to perhaps bring that back where you could actually have, based on the supply demand in a particular neighborhood, distribution through these sort of trucks that come up as a pop-up grocer that delivers food in the local area? Is that something that's been thought about potentially, or is that kind of going too much backwards to the old days?
No, Tulia, that's a great point, and I'm glad you asked the question. And I grew up in India, just like Ram did, and I still remember,
Same town. Hi.
same town, fresh milk being delivered to a house every single day, and it still happens. My parents still live there, and their grocery shopping right now in COVID environment is as simple. They pick up the phone, they call their local, grocer, and half an hour later, the boy who works there, will come with all the groceries that my parents want. So, there are parts of the world that have done this extremely well, and they continue doing this extremely well. But when you look at the Western world, right, as we evolved over the years and we got into this department store or supermarkets and hypermarket concept, some of those really became an expense area. And it's all because of labor cost, in my opinion, right? So how do you be able to satisfy the customer and still be able to be operationally efficient? Now, a lot of different companies have tried this and are doing this, but it's a more of a convenience play. It's not a pricing play. So when you really have to bring that and apply it where pricing becomes a differentiator, what do you do? And that's where technology really comes. And companies like Nuro are doing some great job right now in being able to do that. I believe I just recently read that Nuro is going to partner with Domino Pizza and deliver Domino's like on the so-called autonomous vehicle. So I'm excited about what the future of technology is in this space, but it's going to be elements of convenience that will go back to the roots or the basics of what we knew of getting milk delivered every morning. But still, the majority and bulk of the business will still be managed with technology. I don't think so. The solution today is in front of us to be able to replicate our entire grocery experience.
Yeah, some robotics, some automation, drones, robots, things like that is what will be needed.
Yeah.
My
Yes.
experience with this online grocery versus going on there and using something like Scan and Go to make it a touchless experience has
Yep.
been a 30% price difference, believe it or not. And when you're shopping for, say, $100 of grocery and there's a $30 upcharge just to get it home delivered, that's a significant bite. And if you're doing that week in, week out, that can add up quickly for our middle class families in America. Right. I think, Parag, you just touched upon that. Now, I have two more questions to follow on some of the points that you made earlier. One, how has your relationship with the CPG companies evolved with this whole upending of the supply chain and the digital landscape, if you will? And then you also touched upon, grocery not just being about, meat, potatoes, and vegetables. It's about the experience. So what is it that grocers or grocery retailers are doing to innovate on the experience side?
Yeah, Ram, both great questions. Let me start by talking about CPG companies. If you look at the supermarket business, about 80% of your business goes through CPG. There's some brand name attached to what you're selling. And like I earlier mentioned, that there were some CPG companies who reacted to the pandemic better than others. So it's like a bell curve, right? No matter whether you're a retailer or a CPG company, you had some winners and you have some laggards. But the best place I feel that we were able to win was where we had strategic joint business plans. And we were able to activate contingencies against those joint business plans, and we were able to react. So we were making decisions literally on the fly, over the phone, literally in minutes. And that nimbleness and agility was not limited to one or two. It was across the industry, which was just absolutely fantastic. And then, as we saw some stuff like, we were winning with certain tactics with one CPG company, we were cross-sharing that, because in the early days of pandemic, the goal was to satisfy the consumer because we really became an essential service. So it was not about competitive advantage, and it was not about, how do you gain market share? Yes, as a business owner, you still have to focus on those things. But at the same time, it was all about essential services and how do you cater to the customer at that point of time. So I believe the relationships have evolved, some of them for better, and we are taking our learnings and sharing that and creating new business plans that are consumer focused, and to make it easier for us to approach our customers and solve problems for our customers. And then, talking about the customer, right? I'll go to the experience part. And you talk about, what does the customer want? Over the last several years, as the economy became more experiential, a lot of customers demanding, just not only a shopping run, but what does that shopping look like, right? So we are currently piloting a new concept called Fresh to Table, where we are appending us entire store, and we are designing the layout very differently with the customer in mind. We did deep qualitative and quantitative surveys and research that kind of told us what the customer was looking for, whether it is product placement, whether it was the lighting. But the biggest win really came in is customers saying, I am time starved. How can you make my life easy? How can you help me with meal preparation? So we are concepting and piloting right now meal locations within the store, where the customer does not need to really go and figure out that I'm trying to make my favorite dish this evening and I need to go out to 4 touch points within the store to pick up the things I need. They can go to one destination and pick up all their need and be out of the store very quickly. So some of those things that are being tested, tried out, and implemented will improve the experience for the customer significantly at retailers.
And I think that's what the entire, I would say, retail industry is evolving into, from just buying to experiences, right? And the experience kind of transcends the physical and the digital experience. And I think, Parag, you touched upon the physical aspects of it, and it's so important, right? And then you kind of weave it with your app or your loyalty program and other things that really completes the experience for them, both online and offline and in store and away from the store. And that's really where I see the industry going to. We're up on time, Parag. This was wonderful. Thank you again for all that knowledge and that insight. And once again, a big shout out to you and the rest of the people in the grocery retail industry for keeping us all well fed and not from not going crazy fighting over food and toilet paper. Okay, so thanks for that. And once again, you are all watching Dojo Live, sponsored by Encora. This is your co-host Ram Ganesan, joined by Tulio Siragusa, and we were chatting with Parag Shah, VP at Wakefern Food Corporation. Over to you, Tulio, for any other announcements you want to make.
Yes, just want to remind everyone, we're going to have another show today at 12 p.m. Pacific. We're going to have it with Chad Burgraff of Dispoteca. We're going to be talking today at 12 o'clock Pacific. Come on back. Until then, have fun.
Thank you, Tulio. Thank you, Ram.
Thanks, Parag. It was a pleasure.